want to welcome you back to Thrive in the Word. Today we're going to continue our study of the book of 2nd John. But before we get into that, again, I just want to say if you would like to help us out, we sure would appreciate it if you hit that little like button and then subscribe to this channel. It would help us tremendously. Now, we're studying in the book of 2nd John. We've already studied through the book of 1st John. And if you haven't had an opportunity to look at those videos, I want to encourage you to go back into the archives here at YouTube and find that playlist called 1st John, or Thrive in the Word 1st John, and listen to those, because the background of both of these books they're very close. Both of those books were written in the city of Ephesus. Both of them were written probably within just a few months of each other. And it's very important that as we look at a book of the Bible that we know the background. Now, we talked about in our last video about the background of 2nd John, and we actually moved through verses 1 and 2. Today we're in verse number 3. And one of the things that we need to understand is that these little introductory verses that we find throughout the whole New Testament, or especially through the epistles of the New Testament, is very, very important. Now, many times we just blow over them. We don't think about them. We don't meditate on them. But what's said here is very important. We need to understand that John is a Hebrew. He's Jewish. And one of the things in the Jewish culture that's very, very important is this blessing. You know, even the Hebrew word shalom, which we just say, well, that means peace, but it was always meant to be a blessing. It's much more than just peace. It means a completeness or a wholeness, body, soul, and spirit, soul, and body. It means that this is my blessing on you, that you would be in completeness. Well, in the Hebrew culture, the blessing was very, very important, but it was also very powerful. So I want us to take a look at this blessing that John gives to the church. This is what he said: grace, mercy, and peace, which come from God the Father and from Jesus Christ, the Son of the Father, will continue to be with us who live in truth and love. Grace. What is grace? You know, some people say, well, grace is unmerited favor. You know what? That's 100% right. But let's just say, what does grace do for us? Well, grace is not just favor, but it's something that's given to us to strengthen us. You remember Paul with his thorn in the flesh, and God speaks to Paul and he says, my grace is sufficient. He didn't say my faith. He didn't say my hope, my love, my mercy. He said my grace is sufficient. So we need to understand that grace is something that gives us strength. Grace is also something that gives us the things that we need. You know, we talk about the charismatic gifts. Well, the word charis means grace, something given. And those gifts are given to us as members of the body of Christ. And so grace is the furnishing of everything that we need to serve the Lord. That's what grace is. And so this blessing that John is writing, he's saying grace, and then he's saying mercy. Well, what is mercy? Mercy is pity upon something or someone that doesn't deserve it. How many of you know we as human beings do not deserve the mercy of God? But thank God he is still merciful. And so John is writing and he's saying, you know what? I'm speaking mercy on you even though you may not deserve it. Wow. What a powerful, powerful statement. And then he says, peace. Peace. Now again, what is peace? Peace is completeness. Completeness in every area of our lives. So what a beautiful, beautiful blessing that John is speaking over the church here in Ephesus and over the church's children. We talked about how that are the other churches of the Asia Minor area. Grace, mercy, and peace. Wow, what a beautiful blessing. But John doesn't just end there. He says this, which come from God the Father and from Jesus Christ, the Son of the Father. He tells us that this grace, mercy, and peace doesn't just come from us, but it comes from God. How many of you realize that because grace, mercy, and peace come from God, that there's an infinite supply of grace, of mercy, and of peace? So John says, grace, mercy, and peace from God our Father and from Jesus Christ, the Son of the Father. And then he tells us who it's to. He says, will continue to be with us. Now notice here, John doesn't say with you. He says with us. You see, John is writing here, and he's writing a letter to the church. And he's writing a letter to the church of Ephesus and to the children of that church, which would be Colossia and Laodicea and the other churches of Asia Minor. Because Ephesus basically was the epicenter of all of those churches. And so John is writing, and he's saying, grace, mercy, and peace be on us. He includes himself in this blessing, in this benediction, if we can say. And then he says, who live in truth and love. Now that's a key verse or a key part of this verse, because that's what he's going to continue to talk about here in 1 John. That it's very important that we understand that this blessing is going out to those who live in truth and love. You see, those two things are the conditions of all the blessings of God. That we are living in the truth and that we are living in love. Have you ever heard someone say, God bless you, to an unbeliever? Well, you know what? That is an impossibility. Why? Because they are not living in truth and love. Now, we're going to continue in our next video tomorrow. I want you to join us again as we study through this wonderful book of 2 John.